Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into something incredibly fascinating and honestly a bit haunting. We're exploring the complex psychology behind why people just disappear. We'll be covering the whole spectrum today, going from extreme medical amnesia all the way down to the subtle, quiet fading out of everyday relationships. So, let's start with a really provocative question. Have you ever wanted to just disappear? Be honest. Because whether we're talking about a sudden physical vanishing act or a slow emotional fade, the urge to escape is a deeply human survival strategy. It's a feeling so many of us have experienced at some point, yet we rarely talk about the actual mechanics of how and why it happens. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The urge to vanish. 2. The psychiatric escape known as fugue. 3. Johatsu, the evaporated people. 4. The midnight escape agencies. 5. The quiet, emotional fade. And finally, 6. Why we really leave. All right, Section 1, the urge to vanish or escaping the overwhelm. To truly wrap our heads around this, we really need to reframe how we look at leaving. You see, vanishing is almost always a response to a situation where staying and having to explain yourself feels infinitely more painful than just walking away. It's rarely born out of cruelty. Instead, think of it as a protective shield against this paralyzing emotional overload or strict societal expectations that a person just doesn't have the tools to navigate. Moving right along to Section 2, the psychiatric escape, fugue, losing identity to survive. Okay, so this is where it gets extreme. Dissociative fugue is a rare condition often triggered by prolonged childhood trauma or an intense emotional conflict. It acts as a massive defensive armoring strategy where the brain essentially hits the ultimate reset button. It wipes the slate clean. It's a complex neuropsychological process where someone completely forgets their past, their name, and suddenly finds themselves miles away from home, sometimes taking on a totally new identity. Look at this stark contrast here, because it's absolutely crucial. Normal retrograde amnesia is typically physical, like a head injury, where you might forget a specific past event. But dissociative fugue, it isn't just forgetting where you left your keys. It's a trauma-induced state where you completely lose your personal identity, and then you physically wander away from your life. And these aren't just movie plots, these are real people. Take the 31-year-old man whose fugue was triggered abruptly by an emotional conflict. He just started sleeping in his car and frequenting pubs with no idea who he was. Or Jody Roberts, a reporter who was discovered over a decade later, living under a totally new name in Alaska. And tragically, Hannah Epp, a teacher who slipped into multiple fugue states over the years. She was literally spotted doing mundane things like checking emails at an Apple store before vanishing completely right before a hurricane. Let's pivot to Section 3. Johatsu, the evaporated people, Japan's intentional vanishers. Shifting from subconscious medical escapes to highly intentional ones, just look at this massive number, 100,000. That is the estimated number of Japanese citizens who purposely evaporate from their established lives every single year. They completely abandon their homes, their jobs, their names, and even alter their appearances to start totally fresh. This timeline really shows how societal pressures in Japan have historically pushed people to just evaporate. Back in the 60s, it was a way to avoid the intense taboo of formal divorce. In the 90s, during the economic collapse, people fled to escape this shame of immense debt and job loss. And today, the triggers are everywhere, from escaping stalkers and domestic violence to the crushing, paralyzing shame of simply failing an exam or quitting a demanding job. And get this, because of strict privacy laws, the police will only step in if a literal crime or accident occurs. There is no official missing persons database for this, so families are often left completely in the dark with absolutely no official support. It really highlights how shockingly easy it can be for someone to permanently slip through the cracks of such a highly structured society. So how do they do it? That brings us to Section 4, the midnight escape agencies, the actual business of vanishing. How do you pull off a flawless vanishing act? Well, for anywhere between $450 to $2,600, you can actually hire a yonigeya. That literally translates to a midnight escape agency. Yes, there is an entire booming industry with its own websites and everything, dedicated strictly to helping people vanish without a trace. Now, of course, that price fluctuates based on the logistics.
I mean, evading dangerous debt collectors in the dead of night, especially if you have children involved, is obviously going to cost a whole lot more than a single person sneaking away with a single backpack. It is a highly calculated, sometimes perilous operation.
So where exactly do you go once you've vanished? A lot of Johatsu head to off-the-grid Skid Row neighborhoods like Sanya in Tokyo or Kamagasaki in Osaka. Why? Because you can live in these areas without an ID and survive on cash-only day labor often provided by the Yakuza. These neighborhoods become the perfect sanctuaries. It just goes to show, these people aren't dead. They are just purposely, meticulously erased from the formal system. Let's bring this down to a more personal level with Section 5, the quiet, emotional fade. Digitally present, but emotionally gone. Pulling the narrative closer to home, let's talk about the modern paradox of everyday disappearances that happen right in front of us. Look at this quote. It's so powerful. It shifts our focus to the people who vanish emotionally rather than physically. They stop updating you, they don't offer any explanations, because they genuinely feel that explaining themselves badly is way worse than just explaining nothing at all. See, this kind of fading doesn't happen with a massive explosion or a dramatic final speech. It's a slow burn. It's a heartbreakingly mundane reduction of presence. Step 1 might just be saying, "Oh, same as always," when asked how they are. Then it's just a thumbs up emoji on a message with no follow-up. And eventually, they just stop offering pieces of themselves entirely, letting the rhythm of the connection completely die out. You know exactly how this happens, right? A person can sit at dinner with 6 close friends, completely physically present, yet walk away feeling totally emotionally invisible. Over time, in modern adulthood, social energy quietly morphs into emotional labor. Responding to texts stops feeling like a genuine connection and starts feeling like exhausting performance art. And the longer someone stays silent, the more impossible it feels to finally explain that silence. Finally, let's unpack Section 6, why we really leave and the deep need for safety. We really need to build some empathy here. This avoidant behavior, it's almost always a survival pattern learned in childhood, not some malicious flaw designed to hurt the people left behind. People who pull the slow fade often grew up in environments where speaking up meant conflict, and conflict meant punishment. They learned early on that going quiet was the only safe exit strategy. And trust me, even as they fade from your life, they are likely carrying an immense, crushing amount of guilt over those unanswered messages. And honestly, this is the real tragedy of the fade. Human relationships run on rhythm, small, repeated contacts. When someone disrupts that rhythm by withdrawing, our brains adapt to their absence shockingly fast. Like a path in the woods slowly covered by leaves, friends eventually just stop reaching out. The connection stops being exercised, and the disappearance is cemented without a single argument ever taking place. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this somewhat unsettling but highly important reflection on your own digital age relationships. If you vanished completely today, how long would it take before someone came looking? In a world where we can be digitally online but emotionally totally gone, true connection requires us to actively listen to the quietest voices. Check in on those who seem to be stepping back before they fade away completely. Thank you for joining me, and keep learning.